Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. I am very excited to be back with these two lovely ladies and back with all of you, sharing insights about, oh my gosh, everything and anything. And today we really want to talk about this aftermath of the moon. This moon was significant, still is significant. We're still in the energy of the moon as well. And we wanted to discuss a lot of the feelings that have come up in the lead up and during and now in the aftermath, because there's a lot to unpack and try and make sense of and integrate. And, moons, I find, are not like if we take the moon card and the sun card is like illuminated, clear, bright. You can see it all. The moon can illuminate, but it's illuminating in the darkness and it's not always totally clear. And sometimes you have to like change your perspective and look from different angles to see what is being revealed in the moon. So the moon is just, it's deeper and murkier. So we want to talk about that. So all to say, welcome, ladies, everyone.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's
So
so
pretty
nice to
happy to
have
be
you
back.
back.
Yes, very happy to be back. I know.
I feel like that says it all.
I know. Right? We all need a deep breath.
I feel though like that collectively that's true. Really.
Absolutely.
I know that for myself for sure. Um, I feel like I have, and I don't say this term lightly, but I legitimately feel like I have PTSD from the last two eclipses, from the
Yes.
things that have gone on. But yeah, this moon felt there was a lot of talk of how big it was, and it was big. And for me, it felt I could feel the energy of it. But we were talking before we logged on, and there's a lot of like lying in wait, it feels like. And it's kind of like, for me, it was this feeling of even before the eclipses, I feel like this, for me, anyways, the energy has kind of been brewing in that way of like, it felt like in September there was a real ramping up. And I had this like, okay, I have some real clarity and some understanding of what's going to happen. And then the two eclipses just like flipped my world upside down. And not to be vague, my partner had a stroke. He's okay. He's doing better. He's coming home soon, most likely. But it just like sideswiped. And for me, we were talking about anticipatory, and before all that happened, I had these like, okay, this is what the fall is going to be like, and this is what's coming. And I had this real kind of understanding of, or felt a feeling of clarity of where things were going. And then that all just screeched to a halt, and everything was different and is and will be going forward. And then with this moon, it was like, okay, releasing and clarity, and it's fiery and we're moving into this new phase. And I just kind of feel like I'm still just floating in the abyss a little bit. And that's felt really jarring. And I know we were talking about that a lot of people are feeling that way, that it just kind of feels like there's this big ramp up energy that happens. And then we're kind of just like wacky inflatable waving arm man, just like in the wind, not really sure what's happening. Or maybe it feels calm for you. It doesn't necessarily for me, but maybe it's, you're kind of floating in the void a little bit and just feeling like, la la la, what is happening? And I know for me and my nervous system, that can feel like a really disarming place to be. I'm really grateful for the work that I've done on my nervous system, because I'm actually like, we're doing okay given everything that happened. But the biggest challenge that I'm feeling right now is that uncertainty and lack of clarity about going forward, and not really getting a whole lot of understanding about what that looks like. And that can feel like a frustrating place to be, and all sorts of different feelings.
Just to pop in there real quick, I think from the higher level view, so this is not discounting the human view. I think from the higher level view, there's a theme throughout this fall of new. And when we think new, we think happy new and joyful and sunny new. But it's like full moon new. And so there's this newness, but we don't quite know exactly what it looks like. But we know that we feel something different. things have shifted in different ways, whether it's internally or things outside of you, and it's new. Even for many people, their bodies are feeling different, and like maybe they've moved and then they're in a different location, and it's new, and that newness can be very unsettling because we don't know it. Right. And so I think that is a big collective theme throughout this fall, is moving into the new, whether we call it a timeline, path, energy, whatever, that's going to bring us into 2025. It's this newness, and it is very, very, very different, which can cause such a connection and a drain on the nervous system. I think everyone I've talked to, mostly when you talk about their nervous systems, they're feeling it through the nervous system in a big, big, big way.
Yeah. A lot of nervous system stuff for sure.
Yeah. What else are you feeling there, Lisa?
Oh, just all the same things. Yeah, that the not knowingness I think is really tricky. I think that it's been a tough season for people for sure. I mean, we've all been through stuff. We're all, figuring our way through it, trudging along. Some days are easier, you get some lightness, and then you get some days that are a little bit more murky. Um, I know for myself, I have a tendency to really like when I'm in this place of unknowing, I have a tendency to really like seek that safety that I feel to know, right? It's this illusion of safety, I suppose, that comes with my perception of knowing, because we never really know, do we? But I can feel that. I feel that that part of myself is being really loud right now, and seeking that maybe safety in knowing, and I don't know. And I'm not getting a damn thing.
You know
So,
what's interesting? This week I had this card pulled. So I pull cards that are laid out in front of me kind of every week for the theme. This one, it's called Obedir. I don't know. I can't pronounce the word.
well, I
Anyway,
always have troubles pronouncing in that deck.
yeah,
It's intricate words.
right.
Yeah.
But the meaning of this one really stood out for me, which was like, it's all about doubt and obedience. And at first, the word obedience to me really triggers me. I'm
Yeah,
like, but
that's my Catholic
I
girl
know, right?
trigger.
But when I read the card and like read the definitions and stuff like that, it was more about being obedient to your sense of resonance and like your sense of truth, even if it doesn't match the external or match the new. They're like, essentially, it's like, don't doubt in the new energy. Don't doubt what like for you in the new energy. And
Mhm.
so in the most simplest way, if it's like, I know I should be moving forward and I know I'm supposed to be moving forward, I know this is easier said than done, but it's like, how can you come back to supporting the truth that you know versus supporting the doubt?
Yeah.
Because there's so much negative fear, doubt energy in the collective right now because it's new and all the other factors. If we don't support that true piece in there and like water that garden, the other garden of weeds will completely take over.
Mhm.
And I found that this card so timely with this moon and what it triggered for so many people, myself included too, right? Like pretty significant.
It's that's really important to remember for sure. Look
Yeah.
where you're putting your energy to, you know?
Yeah. Just like detaching from things. And that was another thing Spirit had said with these changes, because we talked a little bit about this before, right? Like this moon was about change and transformation. And yes, we are one day past the moon. So we're still in the moon energy. And oftentimes, like the arrival of the energies of the moon then take a little while to show themselves. For some people, it's like this instant life change event. For others, it takes a little while. And the imagery Spirit gave me was like pebbles on a road and like before an earthquake, something that really changes your life. And it doesn't have to be a bad earthquake, but you start to see the little pebbles start to kind of move and then they start bouncing. And then the big earthquake comes and buildings fall or things change, right? Or maybe some massive, beautiful thing appears. But they're saying notice the rumblings. And that's where a lot of the changes are happening for people is in the little rumblings. But if we don't step back and notice it and we're so consumed in doubt, we're going to miss the rumblings and miss the position we want to be in when the bigger thing appears.
Mhm.
And again, I'm saying that higher level. I'm not saying that to like spiritually bypass the human emotion
Mhm.
of feeling all of the feels in this moon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
even the
was.
human part can really like lean into that too, because even on like if you take that into 3D and you're like, okay, well, I'm feeling all the feels, but what is something that can like get me through this moment in order to be open to receive the next? And sometimes it's literally moment by moment, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's day by day. And I know as cliche as it sounds, like gratitude might be something, but you might have to like dig down to the like the most simplest form of gratitude,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so that can also be something because you don't want to bypass it, but you also don't want to like swim in it.
Yeah.
Because the more that you just like immerse yourself in the doubt or the fear, it's like, essentially, yeah, you can feel it out, but if you get stuck in it, then you're just going to make it reappear, right? It's just going to keep surfacing. It's just, you're just going to see the same thing in rotation, right? And so on a human level, I think one of the ways to get through to the next moment when you are in such doubt is just gratitude. Gratitude, even in the smallest
Mhm.
things, like you can figure something out.
Mhm.
It's just something. What were you going to say? I'm
Totally.
sorry, Elise.
No, no, it's okay. Um, yeah, I so agree. And even, with the circumstance that I found myself in, the gratitude of like, I got home really quick. It was like, we got him to the hospital really quick. He got great care. Like, I think that's why he's doing well. And where I was going to go, and I wasn't intending to bring up what happened. It just kind of came out. And so I was kind of sitting reflecting, like, why did I say that? Where did, whatever. Um, and, as you were talking, Jeanette, they were saying that we often, take a situation like that as a human, it's very scary, right? And you don't want that to happen to anyone. And, all of the human things have been so real and true. And I've spoken to both of you about those things, at length over the last couple of weeks. But, we were talking about the challenge of lying in wait and kind of, being in this dark, shadowy void for a long period of time. And what Spirit was saying is that, you know, the eclipse for me, something drastic happened quickly out of the blue. And yet, on the flip side, when we're lying in wait, we don't like that either. And there's this, human desire to, well, make things happen fast, but only if I perceive it as good, please.
Yeah.
And
Such a
again,
good
not to
point.
say that John's experience was good at all. It's been really, really hard in a lot of ways, but there's pieces of gratitude. There's aspects of it that I'm like, he was really being divinely protected in a lot of different ways to have, if this had to happen for whatever reason, and we don't fully have that understanding, but if it was going to happen, the way that it did set him up for the best recovery possible in like multiple ways.
Yeah.
And so, I can have gratitude for those things. I might not have gratitude in this moment for that specific experience, but there's those pieces that I can find, and to kind of be cognizant of, are we only happy when the good things happen fast, right? Sometimes the good things take time, sometimes they can happen fast. Sometimes the hard things take time, sometimes they can happen fast. They all have their pros and cons, so to speak. Um, but that's kind of just how it goes. And, my brain's really good at like having a little temper tantrum when I'm like, why is it not happening? Like we can easily drop into that kind of, I guess a lot of people would say, like ego place of, and oftentimes that's inner child stuff and like all different layers. And it's not to say we have to, psychoanalyze ourselves in every moment, but it's just to say like, am I equally holding the weight? Am I equally holding that good things can happen fast and they can happen slow, and hard things can happen fast and they can happen slow, and that's kind of just the nature of things. And
Mhm.
sometimes we have to like take a bit of a step back and be like, okay, maybe something good is happening, or maybe these shifts are happening in a slow way because that's the best scenario for what I'm wishing to experience or letting go of or whatever.
Yeah. I have to say too, it's neat that you mentioned that because that is such a true thing. And I'm reflecting on different times in my life where, I've been waiting for something to happen for so long and waiting and waiting and waiting. And the times when This is so interesting. The times when it gradually began to appear, even though I was hoping for it to be much faster, sometimes it was way easier to integrate the new. And it just became this seamless process that suddenly I would look in retrospect and think, wow, I can't believe where I am. Because it was this seamless like progression versus times where I've had something just snap into place, like a phone call that gave the answer or the okay or the doorway or an event or something where suddenly everything is different and it is what you were wanting. But the change was so fast, it actually takes your whole body and your nervous system so long to be able to integrate it into your life that it's sometimes totally overwhelming. And I think sometimes we don't reflect on that. I've never actually truly reflected on that to that degree until you said that.
No, neither.
So it is very interesting how you're mentioning like I've definitely been one who has been so impatient in my life many times over and like wanting change and wanting this or that. And I'm super impatient. But in reflection, those have been some of the best times when it's taken longer
Mhm.
or like changed slower. I'm going to ponder this all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
And
Yeah.
like, and then you can even take it one step further, and it's like, does the change happen more effortlessly when we let go? Like when we actually the
100%.
release to
100%.
need it to be seen or felt or understood. Because I mean, that's resistancy in its finest.
Mhm.
Yep. We hold on too tight. Spirit does it all the time, and we all know that, right? Like if you
Loosen the
hold on too
grip.
tight, you're
Yeah,
forcing something. You cannot force something, it has to flow, and we know that.
100%.
But then we hang on so tight to certainty,
Yeah.
to factual evidence-based knowing, all of those things. Like, and although those are important, but we can't force it. We can't force the energetic flow of something, and that's the surrender point. And that's the hardest part to get to is that surrender point in this place
Yeah.
of gratitude, not the surrender where you're like, F it, I give up. And you throw everything off the table. Like, yeah, I know, right? That's one form of
In
surrender, but
there.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like laced in anger. But then there's like the energetic flow surrender, and that one's totally different, harder to get to.
Maddie agrees.
I haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, she's still my shadow everywhere.
Wow.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so cute.
Yeah, it's like the one thing that humans desire the most is certainty, but there's no such thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
There's literally no such thing as certainty. And so like
yeah.
we desire something that's actually unattainable. And it's like that fun little gift that humans come in with their ego, you know. We forget everything and then we desire something that doesn't exist. And I think it's to
Does.
varying degrees, right? Because like I mean, speaking for myself, I think doing a lot of my trauma work, I think I desire certainty a lot because of certain traumas in my life where it gives me the illusion of some kind of safety or security within believing that I know something to be certain, right? And
Mhm.
if I need to tell myself that, sometimes it gets me through the day. And I think there's a lot of people who can relate to that. And I think that's just part of being human. And I don't want to judge myself too hard on it. And releasing, I think surrendering is something that if there's the thing that I've had to work on the most in my life, I'd say it's that for sure.
Yeah.
Because you mix my fiery Aries and you mix my trauma and my all the BS that comes with it. I think that gives a really fun combination of wanting certainty and being really difficult to surrender. Really, really difficult. So, I mean, there you go. There's a life lesson. There's a soul purpose in there. There's a little soul lesson that I came into to play around in. And so I think for me in saying that as lightly as I am right now, I think that's a strategy I sometimes use because it makes it easier, you know, taking the observation mode, being like, oh, look at Lisa, she's really struggling with surrender right now, and observing that so that
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of judgment on it or that I'm not so like immersed in it and thickened by it. That sometimes taking a step back from the like the nucleus of that issue, just to observe my impatience or my need for certainty and lack of ability to surrender, helps me just be like, all right, let's chill out a little bit. Kind of like I would if I was talking to my kid, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, in a sense, you are,
I
right? Like
am.
you're talking to a child. And yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing is we, you know, the reality of when we get into a judgment of judging ourselves for being in our ego or trying to control or da 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 is a way to try to control. It's a way to try and be like, okay, I'm going to judge it and then I'm going to change it, because judgment is not coming from a place of like ease or being present, or it's like this is bad, good, wrong, whatever, and now it needs to change. And so it's this like self-fulfilling prophecy of not going to get us anywhere. And I know we talk about that all the time, like yeah, the humanness of us is why we're here, and like that all can just be loved and worked with and supported and held, and you know all of that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it
thank you for
reminds
saying
me of
that, because I
that.
was thinking that.
Yeah, that trying to solve an issue in the same energy in which it was created is going to be very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that concept of like certainty in the external world is hard to truly achieve. But there's a level of certainty in the internal world that is always there. And I was asking Spirit, I'm like, what is the word for that? Like, what is that? Is that the soul? Is that love, energy? Like, what is the word? And they're like, there truly is no actual word. It's a resonance. And that's again, like why Spirit keeps saying, come back to here, be in here. What is here? This is your place where you're certain. And the only way I can explain this with an example is in every time I guide people into meditations in my classes, the first place we go before we go out and talk to spirits and everything is we drop into the heart space, which is the neutral, safe space, the space within us that is always safe, always neutral, always harmonious. That's the closest thing I can explain to what they're referencing as that internal resonance of certainty. And
Mm.
I know, and I still have to practice this too, but I know through my illness, when things were really, really rocky, that was the only thing I could hang on to, was to go in there. And I didn't understand anything in my external environment. I'm like, none of this is making sense. I'm terrified. I'm very not well. But I know in my soul, I'm okay. And it was like
Mm.
the one anchor point.
That's really interesting. That's come up so much for like my readings or my recordings that I do. I always go back to like, come back to this. I'm
Yes, right?
always
Like there's
going
no
like
word.
this. Come back to,
Yes.
this part of self, the truest
Mhm.
form of self, this. And for
Please.
me, it's like this pillar that I
Mhm.
visualize it like a really bright pillar that comes
Yeah.
in and intertwines through my spine. And that's how they've showed it for me. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about when I do this.
I get it. I get it. And that's a hard place to find an anchor in when we're so focused on external things and valid external things,
Yeah,
right? Like when life is crashing down externally, it's very hard to, in those moments, also take a moment to like connect into here,
do
right?
this.
We're
Yeah,
more trying to like deal with the shitstorm.
Mhm.
right. It's
But
really helpful to find loving individuals with whom you can turn to as well.
yeah,
Community building.
totally.
Mhm.
Spirit was talking about building community since the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Find your peeps so that you can, whether it's online and you can come and interact with people, whether we can have a group text, because the three of us are so far away from each other,
Mhm.
yet Elyse, when you reached out and we were able to pray together and said
Mhm.
ceremony and just be able to just hold space for one another, community is, I don't know, it's just so important.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah. And
absolutely.
those experiences, because, through a lot of chaos in our external lives, it can be real, like you were saying, Shannon, it can be really hard to get in there. And Lisa, your point around community is exactly what happened. Is in the first couple days, I'm just like, "Ah," and like just in complete fight flight mode. Like I fight really. And I'm like fully just trying to deal with the things. And, in connecting with the two of you, and you were both sending me, readings and ceremony and cards and all these things. And I could feel this like separation of self, of like my brain just being like, okay, this and this like hyper vigilance that I was in, but connecting to that, I call it like essence, my like that kind of essence of self that just is always there. It's that compass, it's that, it's your soul, it's whatever, right? We all have a different experience of it. But I could feel the separation and that exhale when I would connect with the two of you as I'm like driving back and forth from the hospital listening to your voice notes. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I could drop into that place. And then I'd get home and my brain would be like, all right, we have this and da, 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 da. And you'd pop
Yeah,
into it,
of course.
pop back into that fight, space. And then, and I think I went back and listened to your voice notes like probably 3 or 4 times, to, even though I had heard the information, to even just reconnect into that place. So, you know, listening to your sound bowls, or listening to your podcasts or your daily messages, Ginette, or coming back and watching old Spirit coffee talks, or going into the Avalon Spirit Facebook group and finding different things, like even if those aren't, even if it's things you've watched before, or messages that you've heard before, if there's content out there that connects and helps you feel like, oh, I'm dropping back into that space, then like reconnect with those things because they're ever present, right?
Yeah.
Totally. One thing I found really helpful too, is yoga nidra.
Oh
Mm.
I
God,
did a
sometimes
ton of
even in the
yoga
morning.
nidra, and I still almost daily. There was a point where I was doing yoga nidras several times a day, just simply to connect into that. But yeah, I find that a really neat way to kind of distract the brain to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
I love yoga nidra. I wake up every single morning and do a yoga nidra before I start my day.
Yeah,
Mm.
right?
I've been
I know,
doing
I do
that
it
for like a
often too.
year. Yeah, YouTube has some really great free yoga
Tons.
nidras if you guys have never. There's a woman, her name's Tanis Fisherman. She's a Canadian woman. I think she's from Calgary. And she posts her yoga nidra, and she's just, there's just something next level that sinks me into the way that she leads it. And my
Hmm.
sister introduced me to her. So if you guys are new and have never tried it, that's a very good first one
Hmm.
to listen to. Tanis Fisherman. She's unreal.
Yeah, amazing. I'm gonna write that down. I love
Yeah.
them in the
Me
morning
too.
too.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
it's
it's
so
so divine.
powerful. I
Yeah.
know. It's
Mm-hmm.
really good for the nervous system too.
Set an
Yeah.
alarm though, just in case you do fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've
Definitely.
done them sometimes and I'm like, and back to bed.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I feel like if I want to fall back asleep, then there's certain, you're not supposed to fall asleep, right? But then there's
Yeah.
some yoga nidras that are like meant to put you back to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I don't want to fall asleep, I have to get up and change location. So even
Yes.
I'm laying down, I'll go and I won't lay in my really warm, cozy bed with which I
Mm-hmm.
have not moved from, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll grab a cozy pillow and I'll go downstairs and light a candle in my incense and I'll lay on the floor
Yeah.
Mm.
on a pillow and do it there so that I
Yeah.
don't fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I mean, every once in a while it still happens.
Yeah.
I know, right?
In the morning, my body has an uncanny ability to
To
go
fall back
back to
asleep.
bed.
Yeah.
I mean, not right now, but because the brain's active. But yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of times I'm like, I'll get back in bed with my coffee and I'm like, oh, wake up.
Yeah.
Have you slept well the last couple days, Elyse?
You know what? I've been sleeping well this whole time because I just come home and go into a coma
Yeah, me
from
too.
being exhausted. But what's happening is I was waking up early. So the last couple days I haven't been. But I would wake up in the middle of the night and then my brain would be like, great, let's talk about what we need to go over today.
Yeah.
So that was happening for a bit, but that has settled.
Yeah, I feel like that was happening to, I was waking up overnight and I haven't woken up with anxiety and all the thoughts in a super long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was going berserko. And then the last 3 nights in a row, like I roll over, fall asleep, and wake up when my alarm goes off. Like not once am I up overnight. I'm like, what? And it's full
Mhm.
moon and it's like the cycle thing for myself. And it's just like I usually am up and just brutal, but no, I've been like deep sleep. So that's interesting for this full moon because I thought there wasn't a chance I was gonna have good sleeps, but
Yeah.
it's like the moon had little like what is Sandman? Little
Mm.
Yeah.
the moon
Right?
is working with Sandman. Yeah.
It's true. Very true. All right. Well, I think that
Well,
feels pretty complete.
Yeah.
yeah. Know
All
that
right.
you're not alone if you're feeling all
Mm-hmm.
the feels right now. Just keep processing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also to those that are feeling really good with this moon, like that's great.
Amazing.
And yeah, like it's totally perfect and exactly as it should be. You're not missing something. Like
Yeah.
you're in a different trajectory, having cleared a lot of stuff already. So just honor for everyone to just honor really where you're at.
Yes.
I think it's a
Great
big
point.
thing. Yeah. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. And ladies, it was so nice to be back
It's
with
so
you.
nice to
Oh,
have you back.
I feel so complete in my heart. So thank you, everyone. Do share, subscribe if you're new, and also check out avalonspirit.com and as well the Avalon Spirit Facebook page for all kinds of goodness. So we'll see you all next week.